Now, the parents of One Punch victim Thomas Kelly have written to the New South Wales Premier Mike Baird seeking an urgent meeting over an early review of the state's lockout laws.
Ralph Kelly says the Premier had assured him last September that the laws would not be relaxed before February next year.
The Premier gave us his assurances that he wouldn't be taking back the lockout rules or changing any of the legislation which was introduced in February of last year. And I guess the message to the Premier today would be to make sure to give us his assurances that that promise on the 11th of September that he maintains and keeps.
Ralph Kelly there. Since the drinking restrictions were introduced, medical experts and police say rates of violence and hospital admissions have dropped sharply. But pubs and clubs say they've lost a lot of customers.
So, should there be any changes? Joining us from Sydney is Tony Sarra from the Last Drinks Coalition, and from Canberra, Michael Thorne from the Foundation for Alcohol Research and Education. Many thanks for your time. Dr. Sarra, I might start with you. Have you had any indication, or what was your understanding about when there would be a review of these laws?
Well, as your previous speaker said, our understanding was that the Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research would start looking at the figures in June of this year, and then there would be a review in February of next year. So we were quite surprised to see that story in the Sydney Morning Herald in the last day or two saying that that review might happen much earlier. We were very surprised.
And the government says that there was always the intention to do a review within 1 year, so that seems to have not been what many of you understood. Do you think there is pressure being brought to bear ahead of the election to review these laws by the alcohol industry?
I fail to see that there's any other reason. Too short a period means that you can't get a good idea whether it's been wholly successful or not. In that article in the Sydney Morning Herald, there was mention made that the liquor industry, particularly in King's Cross, has suffered a reduction in profits. But the way we see it, and we represent the emergency service workers, doctors, nurses, paramedics, police, 40% reduction in alcohol-related assaults, pretty solid. At least a 50% reduction in alcohol-related violence at persons attending the St Vincent's Hospital Emergency Department in Sydney. And elections coming up, I mean, the way we would see it is that, the public safety in the community should come before vested interests, and the taxpayer should come before the interests of the alcohol industry and of any political parties.
Michael Thorne, bringing you into the discussion, how concerned would you be if these laws were relaxed at this point?
Well, we'd be very concerned. The package of measures that the New South Wales government announced in January last year and implemented from February is saving lives. It means that families are not have to experience what the Kellys have been through and what the Christies have been through. So it is very worrying, especially since the Parliament actually passed laws to say that there would be a review after 2 years. So for the government to be moving in this way, and the Deputy Premier in particular, I think is suggestive of an intent to change what was put in place by the Parliament.
So you're saying that was actually in the legislation?
It is in the legislation.
Oh, well, then there can be very little dispute about that. What sort of behavioural changes have you seen or what have indicated as a result of these laws? Do you think it's actually changed behaviour, or it's just had to stop it in its track because they can't keep drinking?
There was no question that what the government did was very, very decisive, and it, I think, had an immediate impact on people's behaviours, their drinking behaviours, and also the way that they enjoy themselves at night. We had seen a slow decline in the King's Cross economy before the tragedies of last summer. But what these measures that were introduced by the Farrell government and supported by the Baird government did was to stimulate that change and push along fairly significant changes in the way that the Sydney CBD operates as a sort of nighttime economy. Now, I think Australia's drinking culture has been problematic generally. Everyone knows that, and people have been wanting to see change. And I think that what happened in Sydney last summer, though, really highlighted and focused people's attention, and I think that started to sort of wash out into the rest of the community. You know, the industry has been making claims that the people that used to drink in their establishments have gone elsewhere. Look, there's very little evidence that that's the case. Certainly yesterday we heard doctors report that they're not receiving people in their emergency departments from Bondi or other places that St Vincent's Hospital services.
Yeah, I might bring Dr Sarah back into that, because that is anecdotally what we've been told as well, that the problem has just shifted. What are you hearing from your colleagues?
We are not hearing that the problem has shifted. Neither the police nor the emergency departments are reporting that the alcohol-related violence has gone somewhere else. It's just dropped.
And so it would seem remarkable that with such a significant inroad made, as you've been talking about those figures, 50% drop, that would be enormously concerning to the medical industry, because those are lives that not only end but then sometimes are devastated for many, many years to come.
Well, the effect on the person and on their family is immense, and it goes on for the rest of their lives. It's just awful.
Over the summer, we saw over the New Year celebrations, the rules were relaxed, and it seems as if the crowds behaved relatively well. Do you think that was a bit of a test to see whether that there may be that relaxation, or was that the wrong test to both of you?
I don't perceive that that was a valid test of reducing the laws. New Year's Eve is special. There are a much larger number of people, but there's also a much larger police presence. So the relaxation was in a controlled way, and I don't perceive that you could use that as any sort of litmus test or test for relaxation of the laws in general. Michael?
Yeah, I agree with that. Our group supported what the government did on that occasion. It was a sensible decision. But I think that what we're seeing now is not sensible. There's something afoot here, and I think that the intent of the Minister needs to be questioned.
We thank you both for your joining us this morning, and no doubt this conversation will continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.